Assalamu alaikum students. This is your teacher Anam Kadri and today I have come up with the topic of sequential statements while using pseudocodes or while writing pseudocodes. Before moving forward, let me clarify what is a pseudocode and what are the sequential statements. A pseudocode is a high-level description of an algorithm. It uses the structural conventions of programming but is intended for human reading rather than machine execution. Means pseudocode cannot be run like other programming languages, but this is basically used to explain the sequence of the program, that is for the clarification of the programmer as well as for any layman. But when we talk about sequential statements, in sequential logic, the instructions are executed one by one in the exact order they appear. That is, if there are four statements written in a pseudocode, then each of these statements will be executed one after another without the skipping of any statement in between or without jumping from one statement to another. Let's focus on the three core pillars on which the sequential statements is based. So with this, the first part of a sequential pseudocode or sequential logic is input, capturing the data from the user or a database using keywords read, get, or input. After taking the input, that data is processed, performing any calculations or manipulations. And for this, we can use the keywords set, calculate, or compute, and we can directly work on the variables together with the operators as well. And the third part that the sequential logic move on after being processed is the output, that is displaying the results to the viewer using the keywords print, display, or the output. Ideally, we use input output in our pseudocode statements, especially for the sequential logic. To keep our code neat and tidy and understandable, we make use of the following rules. First thing is the proper variable naming using camel case, Pascal case, or even snake case, which include the use of underscores in between in order to separate the two words within the name of the variable. Because this we already discussed that we cannot use space while naming the variables. The second thing is the proper use of indentations in order to make the code readable enough so that the user or it is understandable to the programmer from where the sequence is starting and where it is ending. We use proper indentations. We'll be discussing this in detail as we proceed to solving the questions. Then we use the top down approach, that is the first statement to be executed is written at the top, followed by the next in the sequence as we move to the bottom of the. And last but not the least, we avoid using any language specific syntax because some of the language use semicolon at the end or colons somewhere in the structures. We avoid using those colons and semicolons in the end or to show the structure of any program because we keep it very simple, so to keep it universal and it's understandable, we avoid using such language dependent syntax. Let's practice a simple program in which the name of the user is to be taken as input together with the user's choice of color, and then print the greeting together with the name and his favorite color. So since we need two requisitions from the user, that is the name and the color, so that means we need two different variables for that. So we start off with the declaration first, declare username, and since the username will be given in the form of text, so followed by the colon and written by the data type string. Second declaration statement include the favorite color, since the color name will also be given in text, so the colon is followed by the string again. When we are following the sequential statements, so this will involve the input statement first. So before the input statement, as per the CIE standard, we are going to output what to enter the username and take the input username. Note that in the output we have included the double quotes because this is whatever is present in between the double quotes is going to be output on the screen, and input is only followed by the variable name, that is whatever the value is given by the user will be stored in the variable username. Once the username is taken, it's time to take the next input. Output enter the favorite color and input favorite color. This will complete the first task mentioned in this question of getting the name and the color from the user. Now comes the next task in the sequential statement of printing the greeting. So we are following the output stream. Output hello. Greeting can be assalamu alaikum, hello, hi, or anything. I choose hello here. Since hello will be output on the screen, so it's enclosed within the double quotes, followed by a space and comma, followed by the username. Whatever the value is present in the username, it will be output directly after the hello and space on the screen. And then output seems like your favorite color is, and whatever the favorite color is, it will take up the value from the variable favorite color, which the computer stored while taking the input from the user and output it on the screen while outputting the statement seems like your favorite color. So this concludes the entire sequential program. Let's consider another program in which we are going to calculate the area of a rectangle. To calculate the area of a rectangle, we know that in a rectangle we have a length and a width. The product of the length and the width will give you the area of a rectangle. So that means that right now we need for sure two variables, the length and the width. And therefore we are going to write down the declaration statement first. So we are going to write declare length colon. Now it's up to you. If you want to take length in decimal places, you can use it as float, while if you want to take it as a whole number, you can use integer as well. The second goes for the declaration of the width. Here also, if you want to take it in decimal places, you will take it as float, whereas if you want to take it as whole number, you can take it as an integer. Once you have declared both of them, your declaration path is done. So now you move to the next level of the sequential statement, that is the input statement. Since you have to take two inputs, length and width, so they'll be preceded by the output statement. Output enter the length, followed by input length. Next, we move on to the next input statement, which is the width. So it is preceded by the output statement first. Output enter the width, followed by the input statement input width. Now that we have taken the length and the width as input by the user, we are done with the first part of the sequential program, which is the input part. We move on to the next part, which is the processing part. In processing, the length and the width are multiplied and kept in a third variable, which is the variable area. That means you will be needing a third variable as well. So you write down the declare statement, declare area. This can also be taken as float and or width depending upon which variable did you take for the length or the width. Obviously, if you are taking length or width or either one of them as float, the answer would automatically be in decimal place. You'll have to take area as float. So now you write down the processing statement area, arrow, length into width. Keep it in mind that if you don't want to take a third variable area as a separate variable, you can simply multiply these two variables and directly output the answer whenever you are going to move to the third sequential part of the program, that is output area is, comma. Here, since you used area as the variable, you are going to write down area, but you can also write down the output sentence as area is, comma, length into width. In this case, you won't be needing a separate variable area to first store this product in the area and then output it. So you can use both the types of the output statement, in which you are directly outputting without the need of the variable area, or in which you are first processing the multiplication, storing it in area, and then outputting the variable. So it's totally up to you. Both of these statements will give you equal marks in CIE. Consider a third example, the coffee shop challenge. In this example, a customer comes in, he knows the price of an item, and he knows how many items he is going to buy. This system is going to help him find the total price of the items and then calculate the tax, which is applicable as 10% of the cost price, and give the total price after calculating the tax. So that means, for example, if he bought in 10 cupcakes and the price of one cupcake is rupees 5, that means the total price of the cupcake is going to be, or not the total price, but the subtotal is going to be 10 into 5, that means 50 rupees. Now, since 10% of the tax is to be applied, so the total amount that he has to pay is going to be 50 plus 10%, that means zero point 0.1 multiplied by 50. So he is going to pay 50 plus 5, that means 55 rupees, which is the total amount that he is going to pay to that coffee shop in order to buy 10 cupcakes. Let's code this program. So we take the price, the subtotal, the tax, and the total as real, because these will be including the decimal places, or float or real, whatever you can say. We use the the real here, and then declare quantity as integer, because this is the quantity of the items that is to be bought. Once the declaration is done, it's time to take the input preceded by the output. So we output, enter the price of the item followed by input price, and then output again, enter the quantity followed by input quantity. Once the output and input is taken, we move on to the processing part of the program, that is to set the subtotal equals to price into quantity, and then tax equals to subtotal into zero point 0.1. Add the subtotal and tax into the total amount. You can even do these all of these statements into one, or you can do in two or in three statements, totally up to you how much you can integrate these statements together, or if you want to simplify the program, you can write it separately as well, like I wrote it here. Once the total is calculated, and this time the total variable holds the total price of the 10 of the items, the total price of the items together with the text. Now it's time to output the total amount. So we wrote the output statement, total is equals to total. I hope by now you have understood the sequential statements perfectly well, and how the sequential programs are written down using these statements. Our next target is to integrate selection, iteration, and modular programming in pseudocodes. Summing up, we can say that in sequential programs using the sequential statements, order matters strictly because it will follow the same order in execution as well. Execution is step by step, and this will ensure that the program that is built is very simple. So it is good for complex decision logic. That is where you have to involve uh, a lot of decisions or complicated decisions. It's very easy to break them down into simpler programs, into sequential programs, so that it becomes readable and simple to understand as well. It's easier usage because they follow a set path and are easier for humans to read and debug. I hope my students you understood this topic well. Until next time, take care. Jazakallah khair. Allah Hafiz.